From the endless void, we approached a pale blue sphere, suspended in the black velvet of the cosmos, like a fragile jewel. To our sensors, it was just another life-bearing planet, carbon, water, atmosphere. But the readings hinted at anomalies, subtle yet persistent. Primitive signals emanated from the surface, primitive yet organized, and we anticipated the familiar tremor of fear, the predictable chaos of a species confronted with the might of our fleet. Our vessels glided in perfect formation, gleaming under the distant light of their star, a testament to our superiority. And yet, as we closed in, the first ripple of uncertainty crept along our command lines. The humans did not flee. They did not surrender. Instead, they moved with strange, deliberate precision. From orbit, our sensors tracked subtle patterns, movements of energy we could not classify, temporary power spikes, structures that seemed to vanish and reappear. Entire cities flickered in ways that suggested concealment rather than abandonment. Even the faint tremors of underground activity were calculated, almost ritualistic. It was as if they had anticipated our presence before our ships had even crossed the planetary threshold, a preemptive choreography that defied all known biological logic. Our communication arrays intercepted signals, brief bursts of electromagnetic pulses, erratic yet intelligent. At first, we assumed they were attempts at primitive interference, but as we decoded them, the patterns revealed strategy, timing, and coordination. Not random, not panicked, calculated. Each burst of energy, each flare, each sudden evacuation appeared synchronized across continents, a ballet of preparation invisible to the naked eye. Our historians murmured disbelief. Our tacticians recalculated trajectories in real time. The humans were not fleeing. They were preparing, hiding, fortifying, layering contingencies like a species twice their technological age. From the surface, enormous structures shimmered under our sensors, crude by our standards, metal alloys not refined to perfection, engines not fully optimized. Yet the ingenuity embedded within these constructs was undeniable. Devices that would have seemed laughable in a laboratory were deployed in complex adaptive sequences. Mines triggered remotely, towers rising out of nowhere, networks of communications that could reroute signals in seconds. Every anomaly added another layer of uncertainty to our calculations.
What we had assumed to be simple survivors had already transformed into a multifaceted, adaptable threat. Our fleet, usually a symbol of unchallenged supremacy, began to register tremors of hesitation. Commanders whispered about the audacity of a species so small, so fragile, yet able to orchestrate such meticulous defenses. We watched as tiny crafts emerged from the atmosphere, moving with uncanny precision through gravitational turbulence. Their pilots, or whatever commanded these vehicles, exhibited instincts beyond simulation. Even minor errors in their flight paths seemed deliberate, almost taunting. From our observation decks, we felt a ripple of disquiet, a sensation so alien to us that it triggered system-wide alerts, an anomaly in the expected human response. Fear, hesitation, awe, emotions that should have been foreign, surged across our crews. Sensors continued to pick up movement in the shadows of forests, deserts, and mountain ranges. It was not merely organized, it was anticipatory. We detected micro-evacuations, tunnels expanding beneath major cities, and energy patterns that hinted at stockpiling of materials, weapons, even knowledge. From orbit, the planet's surface became a living map of invisible fortifications, each pulse of electromagnetic radiation a subtle drumbeat in a rhythm we could barely follow. There was coordination in what we had assumed to be chaos, structure hidden in apparent randomness, and most terrifying of all, an unyielding determination. The humans did not merely resist, they prepared with purpose, with ingenuity, with an almost incomprehensible courage. Our simulations, perfected over centuries, faltered. Calculations of conquest assumed uniformity, predictability, and the inevitability of submission. But the humans shattered each assumption. Their technology, though crude, adapted rapidly. They improvised. They learned. Each defensive measure, each movement, each unexpected counter-strategy forced our tactical matrices to recalculate in real time. Entire fleets hesitated in their orbits as we tried to understand the invisible patterns governing human preparation.
For the first time in millennia, the outcome was not predetermined. Even now, as our capital ships hovered in formation above their atmosphere, we could sense the layers of preparation below. Mines hidden beneath oceans, electromagnetic traps in cities, rapid deployment vehicles poised for counterattack. Each device, each maneuver, each subtle calculation spoke of an intelligence that defied our conventional metrics. Our historians and tacticians struggled to comprehend it. A species so young, so seemingly fragile, yet capable of orchestrating resistance on a planetary scale. A single pulse of energy, a faint, almost imperceptible flare, shot across a cityscape, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. Sensors detected it, and our commanders leaned forward, hearts, not metaphorically, but biologically, racing with anticipation and unease. It was a signal. Perhaps a warning, perhaps a test, perhaps a declaration. Whatever it was, the message was clear. These humans were not passive. They were aware, they were prepared, and they were watching us as intently as we watched them. Our formation tightened, weapon systems calibrated, yet an undercurrent of doubt began to spread through the fleet. Not fear of defeat, such a notion had been unimaginable until this moment, but fear of the unknown. The humans had shattered assumptions we did not know we were holding. For the first time, the silence of space was not comforting. It was charged, electric with potential, waiting for the first spark to ignite catastrophe or revelation. As we approached the planet's shadow, our sensors detected movement we could not immediately interpret. Flashes of light beneath the surface, rapid mobilization in areas previously thought uninhabited, signals that danced across communication arrays with an intelligence that seemed almost sentient. Every simulation, every historical reference, every prediction failed. And then we realized they were not merely defending, they were anticipating. Every deployment of our forces, every calculation of orbital dominance had already been considered, countered, and transformed into an advantage against us.
For the first time, our kind faced the extraordinary, a species that combined courage, ingenuity, and adaptability in a way no algorithm could predict. Even now, as we hovered above the blue-green sphere, the outcome of our mission teetered on a knife's edge. They were small, they were fragile, they were human, and they were ready. The first salvo of resistance had yet to arrive, but already the atmosphere vibrated with intent. The humans were waiting, and in our deepest sensors, a singular, undeniable truth resonated. We had underestimated them. The void between our fleet and the planet vibrated with silence, a deep, almost tangible anticipation. Our communication arrays hummed with signals, simple, predictable, the sort that always preceded surrender or panic. Yet as the first human transmission pierced the void, all expectations shattered. There were no pleas, no cries of terror, no shrill warnings or desperate attempts at negotiation. Instead, we intercepted precise, calculated bursts of data, structured like mathematical proofs, interlaced with fragments of humor that our interpreters could barely parse. Something about it unsettled our communications officers, a subtle defiance encoded in binary rhythms. "Curious," one officer muttered, scanning the signal. "They're laughing, but not nervously." The humans were laughing at us, or perhaps with us. The distinction was irrelevant. What mattered was that we had never witnessed such composure from a species so exposed, so vulnerable beneath our weapons. As our sensors swept the surface, the first human forces revealed themselves. They did not assemble in rigid formations as expected. They scattered, moved in unpredictable arcs, and struck with uncanny precision from unexpected positions. Small skirmishes erupted along the edges of our advance units, troops deploying crude launchers, electromagnetic pulses, even repurposed debris as weapons. The damage was disproportionate to their apparent capability. A single human unit could cripple a reconnaissance drone or disable a shield generator with methods we could not immediately comprehend. Commanders observed the patterns forming across multiple engagements and grew silent. These were not random attacks. They were fluid, adaptive, and surprisingly coordinated. Humans were exploiting weaknesses in our flight paths, baiting us into predictable maneuvers, then redirecting our forces into carefully calculated ambushes. Each engagement revealed new tactics, hyperlocal improvisations that no simulation had predicted. Even as we attempted to anticipate their next move, they had already shifted strategies, adapting in real time to our superior technology. From the observation decks, the fleet's officers watched as humans faced death with a fearless composure that confounded logic. A small band of fighters, armed with nothing more than repurposed terrestrial machinery, stood their ground against plasma turrets. They dodged, weaved, and retaliated with an ingenuity that bordered on instinctive genius. Their resilience was palpable. It radiated through the battlefield like a physical force. and the more we attacked, the more their tactics evolved, almost as if they were learning from every failed maneuver we attempted. Our tactical arrays, built to predict and preempt such conflicts, stuttered. The algorithms could not account for the chaotic yet effective human intelligence we observed. Each encounter reshaped our assumptions about strategy, capability, and the nature of warfare itself. These creatures were not merely fighting back, they were transforming every battle into a lesson we had not intended to learn. Even their smallest improvisations carried deadly efficacy. Troops would collapse into shadowed ravines, only to re-emerge behind ambush points. Weapons cobbled together from scavenged materials found in ruined cities tore holes through our reconnaissance units. Supply lines were sabotaged, traps set in terrain we assumed secure. Every action seemed premeditated, yet executed with an unpredictable fluidity, a paradoxical combination of chaos and precision. The calmness with which they conducted these operations unsettled our commanders further. While our fleets coordinated vast orbital bombardments, humans dodged, restructured, and countered with a resourcefulness we had never modeled. It was a discipline born not from fear or obedience, but from choice, from a will unbroken by terror. We could feel their defiance radiating through our sensors, a pulse of courage that challenged the supremacy we had always assumed. Even in moments of loss, they adapted faster than we could calculate. Vehicles destroyed in one sector would be replaced by improvised systems elsewhere, operating in ways that defied our predictive levels. Entire human units would vanish from radar, only to emerge elsewhere with devastating effect.
The more pressure we applied, the more their ingenuity intensified. It was as if adversity fueled them, transforming desperation into advantage, weakness into opportunity. A disturbing realization swept through the fleet. These creatures were evolving faster than our simulations could predict. Our entire operational framework, built over millennia to dominate weaker species, faltered against their resilience. The humans did not merely react, they improvised, they strategized, they learned. Each failed attack on our part became an adaptation on theirs, a refinement of methods that no algorithm could anticipate. From orbit, the humans seemed almost mythical in their capability. Tiny figures orchestrated massive disruption with elegance and cunning. Even our surveillance could not capture the full scope of their coordination. There were hidden networks, unseen signals, and invisible traps, all functioning as extensions of their will. They were no longer the prey we expected to consume. They had become an unpredictable force, one that reshaped the battlefield with every calculated risk, every audacious maneuver. And yet, amid the destruction and chaos, one pattern was clear. They were not panicked. They were not fleeing. They were aware. They were deliberate. Every pulse of energy, every improvisation, every subtle gesture was a signal of intent. The humans were not merely defending. They were asserting control, teaching our fleets that superiority alone could not dictate outcomes. As the first human volleys struck orbital drones and small frigates, a collective hush fell over the command deck. Not out of fear alone, but awe, a recognition that the species we had assumed weak was reshaping the rules of engagement before our eyes. Calculations were abandoned mid-process, orders revised mid-broadcast. Even our finest tacticians found themselves whispering disbelief as they observed the audacity, the brilliance, the sheer unpredictability of human strategy. For the first time in the history of our conquests, the certainty of victory wavered. The humans, so small, so fragile, yet so fearlessly intelligent, had rewritten the equation of war. And as we prepared to respond with full force, another wave of improvisation appeared on the surface, new, unforeseen, and more devastating than anything before.
The realization settled across the fleet like an electric current. These creatures were not only capable of surviving, they were capable of dictating the terms of engagement. And in that moment, the first contact became more than an encounter. It became a warning. The humans were awake, they were ready, and the next move would not come from us alone. The void of space, once a theater of our unquestioned dominance, became a crucible of uncertainty. Our largest cruisers, vessels that had never before faltered, sailed into orbit over the northern continents, bristling with weapons calibrated for annihilation. They moved with the cold certainty of centuries-honed algorithms, expecting nothing more than submission. Instead, the first ambush hit like a thunderclap. Bursts of electromagnetic pulses radiated from the planet's surface, disrupting shield arrays and scrambling targeting systems. Microdrones, minuscule and seemingly inconsequential, penetrated our command vessels, burrowing into critical systems, tearing apart circuitry with precision surgical strikes. Every maneuver we anticipated, every pre-programmed tactic, every calculated strike was met not with predictable panic, but with adaptation. The humans had learned our patterns. They were not reacting, they were orchestrating. From the observation decks, the fleet's officers could hardly believe the coordination. Entire flotillas fell into traps that had been invisible to our sensors until the moment of engagement. The humans sacrificed entire sections of their own territory, cities, bases, outposts, not out of despair, but as instruments of strategy. Each apparent loss was a lure, a calculated opening for the next phase of their counteroffensive. It was a level of cunning, audacity, and long-range planning that rivaled our own AI-guided systems. From the observation decks, the fleet's officers could hardly believe the coordination. Entire flotillas fell into traps that had been invisible to our sensors until the moment of engagement. The humans sacrificed entire sections of their own territory, cities, bases, outposts, not out of despair, but as instruments of strategy. Each apparent loss was a lure, a calculated opening for the next phase of their counteroffensive. It was a level of cunning, audacity, and long-range planning that rivaled our own AI-guided systems. From the observation decks, the fleet's officers could hardly believe the coordination. Entire flotillas fell into traps that had been invisible to our sensors until the moment of engagement. The humans sacrificed entire sections of their own territory, cities, bases, outposts, not out of despair, but as instruments of strategy. It was a level of cunning, audacity, and long-range planning that rivaled our own AI-guided systems. From the observation decks, the fleet's officers could hardly believe the adaptation. From our sensors, the vibrations of their will resonated across kilometers, a force that compelled troops to act in unison with precision that no algorithm could predict. It was both beautiful and terrifying. As orbital drones were drawn into ambushes, entire cruiser squadrons disabled by human ingenuity, our fleet began to hesitate.
Calculations of dominance faltered, predictions failed. The humans, once considered prey, had become predators, dictating the tempo and direction of the war. Every failed assault, every countered maneuver, every destroyed ship revealed not weakness, but mastery. We observed a small human squad deploy in mountainous terrain. Makeshift launchers, scavenged energy disruptors, even improvised kinetic traps dismantled our advanced units with surgical precision. Sensors tracked movements so fluid and adaptive they seemed almost alive. Patterns emerged that were chaotic to our logic, but efficient in execution. Each new tactic evolved from the last, refined by lessons learned in real time, leaving our commanders grappling with the impossible. How could a species so limited in technology act with such overwhelming efficacy? In one engagement, a fleet detachment attempted to force an orbital blockade over a key continent. As our vessels moved into formation, hidden EMP grids activated from surface bases, disabling shields on multiple cruisers simultaneously. The humans had anticipated our approach, anticipated the timing, anticipated the failures. And when microdrones penetrated the flagship, it was no longer a random strike. They targeted the command nexus directly, crippling navigation and weapons coordination. Entire squadrons faltered in confusion, their cohesion shattered, their superiority undermined by creatures we had assumed incapable of coordinated warfare. From our reconnaissance satellites, we saw a human leader standing atop the ruins of a collapsed observatory, arms raised, directing the flow of reinforcements and counterattacks across miles of contested terrain. Around them, squads of humans executed complex maneuvers that would have taken our engineers weeks of simulation to plan. Their courage was incomprehensible. They moved forward into deadly zones with calm certainty, their focus absolute, unshaken by the loss of comrades, structures, or defenses. Death did not slow them. It seemed to sharpen their resolve. Sacrifice was not tragedy, but currency, each life expended contributing to a larger, astonishing strategy. Each ambush escalated the tension. Entire fleets we had considered secure were lured into human-engineered choke points where concentrated electromagnetic pulses, kinetic traps, and improvised sabotage dismantled ships faster than we could adapt. It was relentless, overwhelming, and terrifyingly elegant.
Our tactical AI recalculated constantly, yet the humans evolved faster than our algorithms could predict. What we had expected to be a minor engagement became a planetary-scale chessboard, where each move by our fleet was anticipated, countered, and leveraged against us. We began to notice an unsettling trend. Their improvisation was exponential. The more we attacked, the more sophisticated their responses became. Our assumptions about the limits of their technology and cognition shattered with each encounter. Humans demonstrated strategic creativity that bordered on instinctual genius, reshaping the battlefield in ways that no prior observation could have foreshadowed. Every failed assault became an opportunity for them, every sacrifice a pivot toward greater advantage. It was as if the planet itself conspired with them, each terrain feature and energy conduit turned into a component of their cunning strategy. From our perspective, their coordination seemed almost supernatural. Forces appeared where none were predicted. Attacks originated from directions our scans had not detected. We realized they were not merely counterattacking, they were controlling the battlefield itself, dictating the tempo, flow, and outcome of every engagement. Entire orbital trajectories, carefully calculated for centuries, were rendered obsolete by their audacity. The humans had seized initiative, transforming defensive maneuvers into a planetary-scale offensive. Observing the casualties on both sides, our fleet felt a mixture of awe and terror. The humans were relentless, never yielding, never faltering. Entire cities sacrificed, fleets baited, troops deployed into near-certain death zones, all executed with precision, intent, and calm. Each loss seemed preordained, a calculated step toward a larger, incomprehensible objective. We had underestimated the capacity of these creatures for ingenuity, bravery, and strategic thought. We were not witnessing desperation, we were witnessing mastery. Even as our forces regrouped, new human tactics emerged. Automated decoys, electromagnetic interference grids, improvised hacking networks, all evolved rapidly in response to our latest maneuvers. Each adjustment revealed a species that did not merely survive under pressure, but thrived, adapting at a speed that exceeded our comprehension. Their audacity forced us to pause, to recalibrate, to question assumptions held for millennia.
And then we saw it. Humans advancing from positions that should have been annihilated hours earlier, striking at our forces with precision and confidence that defied logic. Entire battalions seemed to vanish, only to reappear at strategic choke points, their attacks synchronized, their timing flawless. Our cruisers, once symbols of invincibility, were now vulnerable. We were no longer the hunters. The humans had become predators, dictating the terms of engagement with a fearlessness that unsettled our very sense of supremacy. From the observation deck of our flagship, a senior commander whispered, voice trembling, "They are not just fighting back, they are orchestrating." And as the first coordinated strike cascaded across our fleets, tearing through shields and crippling cruisers, the undeniable truth spread like a virus through the command network. The humans had taken the initiative, and the battle was no longer ours to command. The prey had become the predator. The void of space, once a domain of our certainty, was now charged with anticipation, terror, and awe. And from the surface, the humans waited, ready for the next move. The gambit had begun. Our fleet, battered but unbroken, gathered in formation above the planet. The first human gambit had revealed their cunning, their audacity, and their terrifying ingenuity. Now it was our turn to strike. Every weapon in our arsenal was deployed, orbital bombardments capable of incinerating cities, electromagnetic pulses engineered to fry electronics and disable shields, and precision-guided kinetic strikes intended to render the surface uninhabitable. From the observation decks, commanders watched as the first salvo descended. Great firestorms erupted over metropolises, craters forming where once vibrant civilizations had stood. Energy arcs ripped across the surface, tearing through infrastructure, igniting fuel depots, collapsing communications hubs. Yet even in the midst of devastation, the humans adapted. Our sensors detected sudden disappearances of entire population centers, entire cities vanishing beneath the surface in vast subterranean networks we had not anticipated. The humans did not flee, they recalibrated. The underground cities absorbed the brunt of our attacks, yet the surface appeared deceptively calm. And then, with terrifying coordination, counterstrikes emerged from hidden bases.
Micro-drones infiltrated cruisers' hulls, repurposed electromagnetic grids neutralized our shields, and surface-to-orbit launchers disabled key systems across multiple vessels simultaneously. Every retaliation was precise, premeditated, and astonishingly effective. As we attempted to exploit the environmental conditions, we discovered that the humans were already exploiting them first. Storm systems were manipulated to mask their movements, mountain ranges became choke points for our landing forces, and electromagnetic interference, previously considered an obstacle, was turned into a weapon against us. Our targeting calculations, flawless under laboratory conditions, failed to anticipate their ingenuity. Every attack, no matter how devastating, was met with adaptation and counteraction that left our fleet reeling. Commanders on the bridge of the flagship could not comprehend the coordination. Forces appeared where none were predicted. Strikes originated from unexpected vectors, emerging from beneath cities, from within forests, from high-altitude positions above plains we thought were barren. They moved in perfect synchronization, each unit acting as though connected to a single unbreakable will. It was unity beyond strategy. It was instinctual, a reflexive cohesion that transcended our understanding. We observed humans standing atop craters and collapsed buildings, directing troops with a mix of gestures, signals, and voice commands that coordinated attacks across kilometers. Their movements were fluid yet purposeful. Each step, each gesture, each command ripple influenced the outcome of engagements beyond what our simulations could model. They fought not just for survival, but for ideals and motivations that our species could not fully grasp. Every strike they executed carried not only efficiency but meaning, a statement of defiance, a testament to resilience, a deliberate assertion of will against us. Even as devastation rained down upon them, humanity persisted. Cities we had expected to be erased emerged with rapid reconstruction. Energy shields and defensive arrays repaired and redeployed faster than we could track. Forces that had been pinned down reappeared in unexpected locations, launching counterstrikes that crippled critical vessels. Their resilience was not merely physical, it was psychological. Every human loss seemed to galvanize the survivors, refining tactics, intensifying coordination, and amplifying their resolve.
From orbit, we sensed a psychological weight pressing against our fleet. The humans were small, fragile, and yet somehow indomitable. Even our most formidable war machines faltered, not just from damage, but from the realization that the enemy we faced refused to yield, refused to panic, refused to surrender. Their determination radiated through our sensors, through the vacuum of space, through the very algorithms we relied upon to dominate. One engagement illustrated their ingenuity more starkly than any other. Our bombardment had leveled a sprawling metropolitan area, leaving only smoldering ruins. We expected a pause, a moment of weakness. Instead, from beneath the rebel, automated counter-weapons emerged, striking drones and frigates in perfectly timed sequences. Human teams moved like shadows across the crater, coordinating energy discharges, micro-EMP bursts, and debris-based kinetic attacks with a fluidity that no artificial intelligence could match. Each movement was a lesson in adaptability, each strike a declaration that survival alone was insufficient. They would fight to redefine the terms of engagement. Our fleet attempted to adjust, deploying orbital bombardments with precision recalibrated to compensate for previous errors. Entire sectors of human defenses were targeted, expecting minimal resistance. And yet new structures emerged, hidden shield generators, decoy installations, camouflaged artillery that absorbed, deflected, and redirected our attacks. What we had assumed to be chaos was in fact design. The humans orchestrated apparent randomness into lethal efficiency. It became evident that they were learning from every encounter. Every strike we executed, every countermeasure we deployed, every pattern we repeated was immediately analyzed, adapted to, and exploited. Our fleet, which had never experienced failure on such a scale, found itself forced into retreating maneuvers, improvising strategies mid-flight to prevent catastrophic losses. Each adaptation by the humans intensified our unease, eroding confidence in our presumed superiority. Their courage, however, was the most confounding aspect. Humans confronted destruction not with despair, but with a serenity that bordered on obsession. Leaders on the ground exposed themselves in danger zones to coordinate troops, to direct fire, to adjust formations, all while their cities burned around them. Death did not hinder, it propelled.
Sacrifice was not tragedy, it was a tool of strategy, a deliberate component of their larger plan. To observe such behavior was to witness a species whose psychology had evolved under pressure in ways our kind could not anticipate. We realized that our assumptions about intelligence, courage, and resilience were fundamentally flawed. Humans did not respond predictably because they were not constrained by fear in the ways we expected. Their thoughts were adaptive, improvisational, yet structured by principles we could barely comprehend: cohesion, persistence, and an unyielding commitment to purpose. Even as destruction unfolded across the surface, humanity persisted with a will that bordered on the mythical, bending circumstance to advantage in ways no algorithm could model.
From the observation deck, a senior tactician whispered, voice trembling, "They are unbreakable." The statement, intended as analysis, was tinged with awe. Our ships, our advanced technology, our centuries of experience were being tested not merely against tactics, but against the indomitable human spirit. Even as our orbital bombardments intensified, the humans orchestrated counterattacks with precision, leveraging terrain, weather, and electromagnetic interference to their advantage. Hurricanes and storms were exploited to conceal troop movements. Mountains became natural choke points where we were funneled into prepared kill zones. Each environmental factor, each unpredictable variable, was anticipated, leveraged, and weaponized. No attack was wasted, no opportunity ignored, no weakness left unexploited. By the end of the third day, it became clear the humans were redefining warfare itself. Our fleets were fractured not only by their weapons, but by the psychological weight of witnessing such relentless resolve. The stars above their planet, once distant and indifferent, seemed dimmed before the intensity of human courage. Our command network struggled to maintain order as reports flooded in, entire sections of our fleet neutralized, communications disrupted, and vessels immobilized by countermeasures we could not yet catalog. And in the midst of devastation, from hidden vantage points beneath cities and mountains, humans stood, coordinated, relentless, and unwavering. They were not merely surviving, they were orchestrating, retaliating, and reshaping the battlefield in a way that challenged every precept of superiority we had ever held.
From orbit, we observed the unbroken will of a species refusing defeat. And as the final pulses of our assault struck yet another subterranean stronghold, we knew with chilling clarity that the war was no longer ours to command. Humanity had survived the first onslaught. Humanity had adapted. Humanity had countered. And from beneath the surface, a new wave of resistance was already forming. The retaliation had begun. The void above the planet was calm, almost deceptively so, as our fleet orbited in disciplined formations. Sensors scanned the surface for movement, for signs of retreat, for any indication that the humans were weakening under our sustained bombardments. The planet below seemed serene, a fragile orb bathed in starlight, clouds drifting over oceans, rivers glinting like veins of silver. And yet beneath that calm, a storm of calculated intent was stirring. We first detected anomalies as minor fluctuations in energy signatures across previously quiet sectors. Suborbital artillery systems, previously undetected, flared into life. Strike pods, small and fast, accelerated from the atmosphere with near imperceptible heat signatures. Rapid deployment squads, visible only for milliseconds to our sensors, infiltrated command vessels and orbital stations. Experimental cloaking devices, some human-made, some scavenged from their own adaptive technologies, allowed units to strike with surgical precision before vanishing into the shadows of space. Panic rippled through the fleet. For the first time in millennia of domination, we felt the tremor of fear, or at least its closest equivalent, among our ranks. Shields flickered and scrambled as coordinated strikes severed communications and disabled critical systems. Our capital ships, once symbols of absolute power, were suddenly vulnerable, their defenses compromised by a species we had long underestimated. Command consoles erupted with alerts, officers shouting and gesturing frantically. Even our AI, optimized over centuries, struggled to recalibrate in real time. From the observation decks, the planet below seemed almost impossibly serene. But every canyon, every mountain ridge, every valley concealed a lethal mechanism, a strike team, a trap waiting to be sprung. It was a choreography of violence, executed with precision and timing that confounded all our calculations. Each human action was not brute force, not sheer numbers, but a delicate balance of risk, sacrifice, and ingenuity. Entire squads were intentionally exposed to lure us into ambushes, each loss magnified in effect, yet preordained in strategy. The audacity of their planning was breathtaking. Sensors traced the pathways of strike pods and infiltration units. Each pod moved as if guided by instinct, weaving between orbital debris and energy shields with uncanny agility. Suborbital artillery pounded precise locations on our fleet, disabling key propulsion nodes and targeting arrays in seconds. Command centers erupted in chaos as automated repair units scrambled to counter failures, but the humans' timing was perfect.
their coordination flawless. Every maneuver forced recalculation, not just of strategy, but the very assumptions underpinning our operational logic. From multiple observation points across the fleet, our commanders watched in disbelief. Humans, diminutive and fragile, directed operations from concealed positions beneath craters, within ruined cities, and atop inaccessible ridges. Their leaders communicated with precision, coordinating units spread across kilometers. Even when units were lost, the mission adapted seamlessly. Loss was not failure, it was a variable in a larger calculation, a tool for leverage, a step in a broader strategy designed to destabilize us at the deepest level. The fleet's AI worked tirelessly, recalculating orbital trajectories, adjusting weapon deployments, predicting attack patterns. But every new prediction was rendered obsolete within seconds. Humans had identified vulnerabilities in our fleet we had never imagined, weaknesses we had assumed were impossible to exploit. Sensors confirmed it. Every disruption, every strike, every cloaked maneuver was a deliberate, coordinated effort to dismantle our formation systematically. And it worked. In the dead of orbital night, the first decisive strike landed at the heart of our command. Suborbital pods emerged from the planet's atmosphere, invisible until impact, striking critical hubs simultaneously across multiple vessels. Explosions rippled through shield matrices, weapons arrays went offline, and entire sections of the fleet lost cohesion. Panic spread faster than the firestorms, and our fleet's habitual order dissolved into disarray. The humans had forced us into improvisation, a space we had never had to occupy before. Even our most experienced admirals paused in disbelief.
Aboard the flagship, a senior commander pressed his hands to his face, staring at the screens depicting cascading failures. They have orchestrated this. Every strike, every movement, it is deliberate, coordinated. The words barely registered before another alert flashed. Another strike, another breach. Every vessel in the orbital formation now faced threats from multiple vectors, some visible, some hidden, all lethal. We could not ignore the scale of the human audacity. Entire squads, seemingly insignificant against our firepower, moved in patterns that manipulated our calculations. Terrain, previously considered neutral, became an asset. Mountains channeled our forces into ambush points. Forests hid mobile artillery. Valleys concealed rapid deployment squads that appeared where we least expected. Their timing was impeccable, their execution flawless, their patience and foresight unmatched. Even our automated drones, designed to anticipate human improvisation, faltered. Strike after strike was predicted, countered, then rendered irrelevant by an unexpected maneuver. Humans moved like shadows, vanishing before retaliation, emerging in numbers where we assumed no one could survive. Their battlefield was both physical and psychological. Their audacity shattered not only our formations, but our expectations, undermining confidence in centuries of presumed superiority. From the surface, human leaders emerged at strategic points to direct operations, their presence deliberate. They were exposed, yet fearless, fragile, yet commanding. Every gesture, every signal, every decision carried immediate consequences across vast distances. Even in chaos, they orchestrated an intricate dance, balancing risk with reward, sacrifice with gain. Our fleet, accustomed to compliance from subjugated species, now confronted a force dictating the tempo of war on its own terms. The audacity of their plan was almost theatrical. A single human strike, seemingly minor, caused chain reactions that disabled multiple ships. Another, carefully timed, disrupted command signals, leaving our forces temporarily blind to further assaults. Their strategy was both methodical and adaptive, a blend of sacrifice, cunning, and timing that forced recalculation at every level. The humans had transformed the battlefield into a living entity, responding to our every move with precision, creativity, and relentless determination.
Sensors revealed another unexpected pattern. Humans were exploiting redundancy in our systems. Where we had assumed failure in one area would not affect overall cohesion, they struck with surgical accuracy, exposing cascading weaknesses that amplified the effect of each attack. Our simulations, however complex, could not account for the emergent behavior of human tactics under pressure. Each loss, each disruption, each misstep was leveraged against us, magnified, transformed into opportunity for them. The first ripple of defeat spread through the fleet, not total, not yet, but undeniable. Ships we had counted on for supremacy were crippled. Communications faltered. Tactical cohesion fractured. The humans, so small, so fragile, had not only survived, they were dictating the terms of engagement. They had taken the initiative, seized control of the tempo, and forced us into a reactive stance we had never known. Even our most experienced tacticians, trained to anticipate the unpredictable, faltered. "They are not just fighting back," whispered a senior analyst. "They are orchestrating the war itself. They are controlling it." The voice, taut with awe, echoed across command decks as another barrage of suborbital artillery disabled yet another cruiser, leaving our formation in visible disarray. For the first time in the history of our species' dominance, victory was uncertain. The humans, through ingenuity, courage, and audacity, had transformed the battlefield. No longer passive, no longer prey, they had become predators, dictating the pace and nature of conflict. And as the first coordinated strike of this new phase rippled across the fleet, the full weight of their potential was undeniable. Above the planet, the stars themselves seemed to dim beneath the intensity of human resolve. Every pulse, every strike, every calculated movement from below resonated upward like a declaration. The humans were awake, aware, and in command. The turning point had arrived, and in the cold darkness of space, our fleet trembled, not from firepower, not from loss, but from the dawning realization that the humans were no longer playing defense. They were dictating the war. The void above the planet was alive with tension, electric in its stillness. Our fleet, once the epitome of precision and inevitability, now trembled in formation, aware that the culmination of human ingenuity awaited. Signals indicated movements everywhere: subterranean, terrestrial, atmospheric, and orbital.
It was impossible to track every action, impossible to anticipate every strike. The humans had transformed the battlefield into a living organism, and we were now trapped within it. The engagement began suddenly, like the snap of a predator's jaw. Strike pods erupted from suborbital trajectories, cloaked until the last possible moment, converging on our reinforcements with surgical precision. Surface forces surged through hidden transport systems, appearing where least expected, cutting supply lines, neutralizing key installations, and annihilating entire squadrons in an instant. Even our most sophisticated predictive models, refined over centuries of conquest, failed to comprehend the intricacy of their maneuvers. Every calculation, every simulation, every contingency collapsed under the weight of their combined tactics. From the observation decks, the humans' coordination appeared almost ritualistic. Small squads disappeared into ruins and re-emerged, orchestrating vast assaults. Entire cities, seemingly destroyed, acted as control hubs for synchronized strikes. Signals from the surface flowed in perfect harmony with orbital bombardments and suborbital insertions, creating a symphony of destruction that defied logic. Even in their casualties, there was purpose. Loss became leverage, failure a tool for refinement, and sacrifice a spark that galvanized the survivors into ever greater feats of ingenuity. Orbital cruisers, designed to withstand entire planetary strikes, were disabled by what seemed like improvisation. Micro-drones infiltrating critical systems, electromagnetic pulses repurposed to cascade into chain failures, energy weapons turned against our formations. Each vessel destroyed or crippled was simultaneously a trap and a lesson. The humans had studied our methods, learned our vulnerabilities, and weaponized them. What had been our superiority, the predictable logic of technology, was now our undoing. We watched as human commanders exposed themselves openly in conflict zones, standing atop shattered buildings, directing forces with gestures and signals that coordinated attacks across kilometers. They confronted death with deliberate resolve, inspiring troops around them to act with unmatched precision. From their perspective, the battlefield was a canvas. Each strike, each loss, each sacrifice painted a picture of strategy and intent that no algorithm could replicate. Supply lines that had once been secure were severed within minutes.
Reinforcements attempting to enter orbit were intercepted and destroyed before they could establish formation. Surface teams infiltrated command nodes, seized control of key systems, and rerouted data to amplify chaos. The humans had transformed every element of our arsenal into potential liability. Weapons we had considered invincible were now exploited against us, and strategies that had ensured dominance for millennia crumbled under their relentless improvisation. Even our automated response units faltered. Drones sent to intercept suborbital pods were lured into traps. Shield generators were overloaded by coordinated energy discharges, leaving entire squadrons vulnerable. Every defense we deployed was anticipated and neutralized with minimal exposure. We could not adjust fast enough. The humans' timing was impeccable, their adaptability instantaneous. The battlefield seemed to bend to their will, every obstacle a component in an intricate choreography of destruction.
From our sensors, the planet below appeared deceptively tranquil, bathed in starlight. Yet beneath that calm, humanity moved with relentless purpose. Subterranean networks unleashed counterattacks in perfect sequence. Forests and mountain passes became strategic choke points. Storm systems were manipulated to mask movement and amplify attacks. Even the environment was a weapon, wielded with precision. It was impossible to predict, impossible to counter, impossible to comprehend fully. We observed clusters of humans coordinating with near instantaneous response times, using repurposed technology, hacked systems, and adaptive strategies that bordered on genius. Weapons intended to annihilate were turned back on our forces. Energy grids disrupted orbital shields. Sabotage of propulsion systems sent capital ships drifting helplessly into pre-designated kill zones. Every loss we inflicted upon them was transformed into opportunity, a countermeasure, a trap, a mechanism to destabilize us further. Even the psychological impact was engineered. Entire fleets paused, unsure where to strike next, as signals from multiple vectors arrived simultaneously. The humans orchestrated not just physical but cognitive warfare, exploiting uncertainty and hesitation as effectively as they did shields and weapons. Panic spread subtly yet inexorably among our ranks, a ripple that undermined coordination, eroded confidence, and fractured our once unshakable formations.
From their hidden vantage points, human leaders directed chaos with serene precision. Gestures, signs, coded signals, coordinated strikes across kilometers of battlefield. Even as casualties mounted, each loss became a catalyst for innovation. New strategies emerged faster than we could counter. Improvisation intensified under pressure, and the audacity of their maneuvers forced recalculation at every level. It was impossible to anticipate the next move, impossible to feel secure in any position. Entire fleets were lured into traps, yet it was done with such precision that what appeared to be chaos was a symphony. The humans understood the flow of combat, the ebb and surge of energy, the vulnerability of our calculations, and they orchestrated it with an artistry that was incomprehensible to us. Suborbital artillery, rapid deployment squads, repurposed drones, and cloaked units all acted in concert, synchronized as if driven by a single indomitable will. Even the deadliest of our vessels, intended to dominate, became instruments in their strategy. We observed cruisers disabled, then exploited as decoys to draw additional forces into ambushes. Battleships, intended as bastions of security, were hijacked by microdrones and electromagnetic subversion. Each defeat was both catastrophic and educational, for the humans, for us, and for the battle itself. And through it all, the humans themselves moved like shadows and specters, fearless in the face of annihilation. Leaders exposed themselves to danger, orchestrating attacks with calm authority, while squads executed maneuvers that defied logic, physics, and expectation. Their courage was infectious, their ingenuity magnified by every setback. Each sacrifice, each loss, each confrontation with death only strengthened their cohesion and sharpened their tactics. From orbit, the fleet watched in helpless awe as our forces collapsed systematically, not through brute force alone, but through strategy, coordination, and relentless audacity. The humans were no longer survivors. They were apex predators, exploiting every weakness, turning every advantage into liability, reshaping the battlefield to their favor. Their resilience was magnified with every loss, every setback, every sacrifice. Even as our flagship reeled from coordinated strikes, the humans' precision was undeniable.
Suborbital artillery, surface-to-orbit energy discharges, infiltration units, and improvised weapons acted in unison, converging on critical nodes simultaneously. No single countermeasure, no single tactic, no single fleet could withstand the convergence of human ingenuity at this scale. The realization settled across our command decks. They had rewritten the rules of engagement. No technology, no calculation, no historical advantage could overcome the force of their resolve. They fought not for mere survival, but to dictate the terms of battle, to control the tempo, and to transform loss into victory. And as the final wave of coordinated strikes cascaded across our fractured fleets, a singular, undeniable truth crystallized. Humanity had transcended expectation, not merely surviving, but dominating. We watched, powerless, as the apex predators of this moment orchestrated the collapse of our supremacy with a combination of courage, ingenuity, and unyielding will. The final gambit had been executed, and in the cold void of space,
our fleet understood that the humans were no longer prey, they were predators. The rules of war had changed. The void above the planet was silent, heavy with the aftermath of conflict. The remnants of our fleet drifted in fractured formations, crippled vessels barely holding orbit, shields flickering, weapons offline. Once proud cruisers, symbols of dominance and certainty, floated like tombs among the stars. There was no order in the aftermath, no rallying cries, only the mechanical whines and sparks of systems failing, and the low hum of recognition. The humans had endured, adapted, and prevailed. From orbit, the planet below glowed with the quiet fire of a species unwilling to bow. Cities lay scarred, buildings reduced to rubble, infrastructure shattered. But in every ruin, life persisted. Energy flares flickered from hidden bunkers, lights blinked in subterranean networks, and mobile squads moved purposefully, securing what remained, rebuilding, coordinating, preparing for what they always had prepared for: survival. And yet, survival had evolved into victory. Every maneuver, every counterstrike, every sacrifice had been a declaration, a testament to a resilience we had never before encountered. Observing them was humbling. To our kind, accustomed to seeing fear, submission, and predictable panic in the face of superior force, the humans' response was beyond comprehension.
Even in the shadow of annihilation, they had turned desperation into innovation, fear into ferocity, and vulnerability into advantage. Where other species might crumble under pressure, humanity had transformed pressure into creativity, chaos into strategy, and every loss into a mechanism for growth. We recorded every action, every maneuver, every calculated risk, cataloging it as if attempting to understand an alien theorem written in real time. The humans moved with astonishing coordination, units repositioned across ravaged cities, energy grids repaired, supply lines re-established, and command nodes reactivated with uncanny speed. Leadership was not absent in devastation, it thrived. Figures stood atop crumbled buildings, directing operations, signaling reinforcements, guiding repairs, inspiring the living. Their presence radiated courage, unity, and an indomitable will that resonated even through the void. From orbit, it was clear that this triumph was more than physical, it was psychological. The humans had endured every strike we delivered, adapted to every tactic we deployed, and exploited every flaw we assumed impossible to penetrate. Their ingenuity had magnified under pressure, their coordination exceeded all expectations, and their courage, raw, unshakable, audacious, had rendered our technological superiority irrelevant. We, the apex conquerors, had been undone not by brute force, but by an unyielding spirit. Sensors picked up small but significant signs of celebration, humans emerging from hidden facilities, waving to comrades across destroyed streets. Drones dispatched for reconnaissance returned with data confirming coordinated recovery and reorganization. The survivors did not merely exist, they organized, rebuilt, and strengthened their positions. It was not chaos that reigned after victory, it was order refined through hardship, discipline honed in the crucible of survival. We, the Watchers, cataloged not just destruction, but mythos. Each strike, each sacrifice, each triumph was a narrative of audacity, of courage magnified by necessity. From below, the humans had crafted a story in real time, a legend of determination that would be incomprehensible to any species lacking the same fire. Every action had been intentional, every decision calculated to maximize advantage, every failure leveraged as an instrument of success. In the aftermath, the magnitude of what we had witnessed became undeniable.
Humanity had turned what should have been vulnerability into unassailable advantage. Their ingenuity had converted fear into strategy, desperation into triumph. Where our forces had assumed predictability, they had found unpredictability, using it not to flee, but to dominate. The humans had rewritten the equation of conflict, bending circumstance, environment, and technology to a will that was extraordinary in its clarity and audacity. Even now, as the remnants of our fleet struggled to maintain orbit, we perceived the psychological impact on ourselves. Our calculations, our centuries of doctrine, our confidence in inevitability, all had been undermined. Observation of human resilience revealed an aspect of intelligence and courage we had never cataloged. Fearless in the face of annihilation, adaptive under every attack, and relentless in execution, they had achieved a victory that defied logic, expectation, and prediction. Data collected from the surface confirmed a systematic reclamation.
Energy generators repaired, supply networks restored, mobile units redeployed, leadership structures intact, commanding figures present, directing action with calm authority. Humans who had endured the devastation of bombardment now surveyed the ruins of their world, eyes forward, measuring, calculating, preparing for the next challenge with the same resolve that had guided every maneuver of the war. Even in their triumph, there was humility. Observers noted a careful restraint, a strategic patience. The humans did not revel in destruction. They rebuilt, they secured, they organized. Each victory was treated not as a conclusion, but as a foundation for the next stage of resilience. We cataloged this behavior with a sense of awe, a species that could harness suffering as a tool, courage as a weapon, and unity as a strategy. Reports transmitted back to our homeworlds reflected more than technical detail. They conveyed astonishment, disbelief, and reverence. Humanity was not merely survivors. They were exemplars of determination, ingenuity, and the terrifying potential of those underestimated. Our intelligence arrays, our tactical analyses, and our historical records all were updated with the same conclusion. To face humans was to face the extraordinary. Every protocol now included contingencies for the impossible, the audacity, resilience, and creativity of a species that had turned the battlefield itself into a medium of triumph.
We watched as the sun rose over the planet's horizon, scattering light across cities that bore the scars of war but glowed with life and purpose. From orbit, the beauty of it was almost poetic. Ruins alongside functioning energy grids, mobile units patrolling open streets, subterranean networks humming with activity. Humanity had endured every threat, adapted to every challenge, and emerged not broken but fortified. They had survived annihilation, transformed adversity into strength, and in the process become something far greater than we had imagined. And as the fleet drifted in defeat, powerless to retaliate, the truth was undeniable. Humans had transcended expectation, had redefined resilience, and had claimed victory in a war we had assumed would be ours by default. The lesson was clear, etched into the very consciousness of our species. The underestimated can become the unassailable, the fragile can become the invincible, and the human spirit, when forged in adversity, becomes a force beyond reckoning. From orbit, we recorded one final observation. The humans stood, scarred but unbroken, commanding their world with unity, courage, and indomitable will. Every movement, every structure, every recovered system was a testament to their determination. The apex predators of this moment were no longer theoretical, they were real. They had survived. They had triumphed. They had rewritten the rules of engagement. And in that victory, their legend had begun.